Welcome to the Divorce Survival Guide podcast, where we have open and honest conversations about co-parenting, separation, divorce, and the hardest question of all, should you stay or should you go? I'm Kate Anthony, your divorce survival guide, and I'm here to help you navigate some of the roughest waters you've ever swum in and answer some of your toughest questions. I've been to hell and back. And now it's my mission in life to help you get to the other side of this process with your sanity and your heart intact.
Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope you're staying cool and safe and protected from any climate disasters in your area. Let's say. I know it has been incredibly hot in Los Angeles and, obviously watching the weather patterns across the US and some of the rest of the world, it's kind of a scary time. My thoughts are with you guys and hoping that you're staying safe and cool and protected. I'm excited today to bring you my conversation with Erin Levine. She's been on the podcast before. It was I think a week into the pandemic that she was here last. So Erin is a lawyer turned CEO, and she's the founder of Hello Divorce, which is an award-winning venture capital-backed platform that has revolutionized the divorce experience from a black box into a clear, streamlined, and less stressful path, so that everyone has the support that they need to confidently end one chapter and empower a better next one. I love Hello Divorce, and Erin and I have a really great conversation today about how it can really help you streamline this super complex process and take some of the, legal mumbo jumbo and all that out of it so that you can approach this feeling a little bit more empowered. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Erin Levine. Erin, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. We can't quite remember how long it's been because COVID happened and time was weird.
Okay, to our credit, it was like the start of COVID. We were in a vortex, and I just remember sitting in this tiny little room, thinking about what value we could bring to listeners who all seem to be, including us, in crisis. So maybe we can all just start by patting ourselves on the back, like we survived those days.
Right?
We're here.
We made it. Most of us, not all of us, but those of us who are listening, we made it. So, well, thank you for coming back. I really appreciate it. And we were just chatting a little bit. I want to kick us off with how is divorce being sort of portrayed in the world and in the media these days? What do you see?
Oh gosh, it's like whiplash. It is so hard to really get a clear beat on it, and that's because there is this total duality. So on the one hand, you see platforms like Atlantic speaking about the importance of an uncontested divorce, how you too can have a divorce where your best friend is your spouse. And it's like Gwyneth Paltrow's conscious uncoupling has come to life, guys. It's here. You can have it.
Uh-huh.
And then on the other side, we've got platforms like Wall Street Journal that are writing about how divorce has never been messier, that you have so few options, that legal fees are up 4.9%, which is true, but that because of the financial uncertainty we're sort of all experiencing, and because of the increase in legal fees, and because of the increase in mortgage interest rates, there is no way we could possibly get along, and divorces are messier than they've ever been.
Is that true? What do you see?
Well, I don't see that. As the CEO and founder of Hello Divorce, we've been growing consistently 15% month over month. So I am seeing thousands and thousands of people divorce without court, without lawyering up in the traditional sense of the word. But at the same time, these are not best friends. Like for the most part, there is conflict in virtually every divorce we see come across our platform. It just doesn't always rise to the urgency, because that's really what it comes down to. When you need a lawyer and you need to get into court, it's generally around an emergency, like a financial, emotional, or physical emergency. You are being cut off from finances. You don't have access to your kids. There's always that. There are always going to be matters like that. But for the most part, we're seeing a real increase in people who the word is out. Divorce can get really messy and really expensive really fast. And people trying to see what other options are out there and will it work for them.
So it's really interesting. So what you're saying is that you're seeing your business, Hello Divorce, online divorce platform is growing, but also it's not just people in these like kumbaya conscious uncoupling situations. These are just people who are trying to save money and trying to avoid litigation.
Right. And they might not even trust each other fully, which makes a lot of sense. For the most part, these are people that aren't necessarily getting along, but they are able to agree on one thing, which is that they want to stay out of court if at all possible. So they aren't agreeing not to have legal representation. They aren't agreeing not to bring in a financial expert if they need one. All they are saying at the start of the divorce, all they have to agree to is, we understand how messy and ugly and expensive divorce can get, and we are going to do everything we possibly can to stay out of that system.
Yeah. Okay. And that's, I mean, I feel like that's kind of a majority of people.
It is.
Right?
It is.
Even, you know, I was going to say, even in high conflict cases, I mean, look, if you are divorcing a sociopath, not even all narcissists, right? But an abuser, somebody who is drawn to conflict and really wants to use this opportunity to destroy you, then yeah, they're not going to agree to do an online divorce. They're not going to agree to an easy, and I was going to say an easy way to do it, but it's not easy, but an easier path. But otherwise, it's in most people's best interest. My question to you, one of many, is how does somebody invite the person they're getting divorced from to join them in using Hello Divorce? Which, hold on, first of all, before we do that, what states is Hello Divorce currently available in? And you are rolling out a new state every 2 weeks, you said, right?
Yes,
which is
that's
so
correct.
Exciting. So where are you now, and how long will it take before you're in all states?
Yeah. So we are in California, New York, Texas, Colorado, Utah, Indiana, Washington, Illinois, and by the time this airs, at least a couple more. But we're launching in Florida this week. So we're not new. You've been
around for a while.
But as you know, I really wanted to take our time in terms of expanding. I didn't want to just expand for the sake of expanding, because what we learned very early on is that technology is not enough. Like divorce is so multifaceted. There's so many things that come up emotionally and financially and legally, that we wanted to ensure that we had a team of amazing experts in every state, along with awesome technology that makes things more efficient. And so we took our time, and now we have the formula down. And so we're launching in a new state every 2.5 weeks. It's really exciting.
When we met, you were only in California. And you were trying to roll yourself out, right? Like it's been a ride. I think this is so exciting. And what I really think is important, like there are a lot of online divorce platforms out there that, cover every state, but they don't do it in to the depth, to the degree that you do it in terms of the depth, because how could they? Because every state has such different laws. right? So
Every state has different laws. Every state has different forms. Every state has different procedure. Sometimes county by county is different.
Right.
One county will want you to staple, another will e-file, one will say paper clips, okay. One says e-signature, one says notarize. It's very, very, very complicated, number one. And number two is we really wanted to work with first hundreds and then thousands of people to understand what people needed as they moved through the process. We knew what they needed from a legal perspective. Like that's what I do best. I was a lawyer for 15 years before I launched this. But what we didn't understand is like, where are the friction points? Where do you need to work together? Where can you work separately? And so one of the key differentiators with Hello Divorce is that you can start on your own. There are certain things that you will have to do throughout your divorce process, no matter what, on your own. And to assume that the two of you want to work together on every little step in divorce is really not fair and not reasonable. I mean, there's a reason why
it's not
we're
realistic.
getting a divorce.
Right, exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
Usually we can't do these things together. That's why we're getting divorced. Right.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So the way we have it set up is that almost every state, you can break the divorce process up into 3 steps. The first step is completing the initial paperwork. And there are states that allow you to file jointly, but for the most part, they don't. And so the first step is answering the questions necessary to be able to populate that first set of forms. And that gets you started. Like, hey, like I have some power here. I'm taking that next step after sort of living in indecision or being blindsided by my spouse, whatever it might be, you're taking that next step. But also in states where there are waiting periods, it gets the clock going.
That's right.
And that's so important.
It is, right? It's important. And it's important psychologically, right? It does get the clock going in terms of like, okay, we have to be separated for a year before we can even file. Okay, great. Let's file for legal separation. So there's something happening. But also in that process, you don't feel like you're just sitting around twiddling your thumbs. There's something psychologically very empowering when you feel like you're actually doing something to move things forward.
Yeah.
Right?
And exactly. I think it's almost a powerful form of personal activism, like taking control of your future, as scary as it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So generally, not always, and whether or not it's the woman who decides they want a divorce, it's usually the woman that files. Not just on our platform, but in general. I know you've covered this before, 70 to 80% of the time. So they do the first step. The second step is the financials. And that's also can be done asynchronously, at least to start. So a lot of people will start on their own, start to not only disclose their finances, because that's part of the process, but also start to understand them and to learn where they might be missing some information that they'll need for their divorce. And then by that point, usually we have Hello Divorce has in one way or another, with the consent of the customer, coordinated with the other spouse to let them know that their spouse has chosen to try to get divorced outside of the court, that we have technology and tools and experts available to both of them to help them get to an agreement. And so they've had this, like, instead of eroding trust like you would with a court divorce where you serve your spouse with this random process server and there's documents that say you're being sued and that if you don't respond, you lose your voice. Instead of sort of ramping up that conflict, we are trying to build trust right from the start. So there are many customers who believe that how you approach your divorce lays the groundwork for how it can go. And maybe even if your divorce doesn't go exactly as planned, so much of it is how you feel during it, right? How you walk through the world, your experience. And so being in integrity from that first moment feels really important, and generally does, in a lot of ways, sort of start to reduce the conflict and the tension. So a lot of people do tell their spouse ahead of time, but if they don't, then they let our team at Hello Divorce, which is kind of like your divorce project manager, connect with your spouse.
I think that's great. So like there is an option for you guys to send an email or whatever that says, hey,
Yeah.
we've been talking to your spouse and they think, which is really nice, because I think some people, like by this point, think communication's broken down, things are, but if you're in like a high, does this email account for certain like personalities and right, like the invitation, does it, like, how do you invite someone who is high conflict, who's maybe not so amenable to any of this?
Yeah.
How do you invite them to use this platform and collaborate?
So in that scenario, I strongly suggest, so let me back up. We have several different plans. And the plan that I was referring to is more for the lower conflict or more friendly divorce.
Got it.
One plan that we often use for even high conflict individuals is our mediation plan. And in that scenario, it doesn't always mean that both spouses are in the same Zoom room, sort of battling it out. Generally, what we do with our highly trained and skilled mediators is broker a deal between spouses. So, and the way that the spouse gets involved is to say, listen, if we can agree that our goal is to stay out of court, then let's each have a 15-minute call with Hello Divorce. We don't even have to have it together, but let's at least call and see if you or I or both of us thinks that it might actually serve our needs. And then from there, if both spouses are in, meaning that they want to go with us at a minimum to get their paperwork done, but most, actually, if they choose mediation, 97% of them go to our step 3, which and resolve the issues that they've been working through or that they need to resolve for their divorce. Oftentimes, it takes a few different calls with a few different mediators to feel like both spouses have found someone that they feel like they can work with. And that's okay. I think that's another great differentiator, is that we have these amazing mediators. Some are lawyer mediators, some are therapist mediators, some are coach mediators, but these are neutral, highly experienced mediators that their goal is to help you resolve conflict without having to litigate. So it's still grueling, it's still divorce, but on average, people spend 1/10 the amount that they would spend in any other scenario.
I'm on the site right now because I wanted to double check. So you have 4 plans. And the most expensive plan, I mean, is this a cap? I don't want to quote it. I mean,
yeah. The most expensive plan is $3,800. However, there are lots of people in high conflict-ish situations that add an hour or 2 or 3 with the lawyer a la carte along the way, or before they sign off on that final agreement.
Yeah.
So,
which,
something like 95% of people get out of there for less than $5,000, and that includes both spouses. And as you know, the average cost of divorce in the United States is between $15,000 and $20,000 per person. So it's definitely a lot less expensive. The mediation includes also a certified divorce financial analyst. So some people need additional help understanding, how are we going to divide the equity in our retirement plans? How are we going to maximize our financial resources and minimize what we have to pay to the IRS? So that is fantastic. But, there are a lot of people who say, I want a gut check, or before I sign these final agreements, I want one of your lawyers to just walk me through this and make sure I'm not missing anything. And you can purchase that help directly through the platform in like 30-minute or 1-hour increments.
And would that be like hiring a consulting attorney to go through and make sure that everything, that you're not, what have I missed? Is there anything glaring that I've missed that I should have been asking for?
It's the same thing. Okay. Yes. So you're moving through the process and you say to yourself, I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. In that scenario, you would, instead of having to go out and find and interview a consulting attorney, you could choose one right from our platform. That attorney, of course, would not have any relationship or access to the mediator. This is a confidential relationship that you would have with your own lawyer, and your spouse could do the same.
So I just want to also point out that the DIY plan, like if you guys can figure it out and it's not that complicated, you can choose your state, got the filing and the filing software, you've got forms, all the instructions, and then you can add on services if you want. But really the basic, it's $400, which is like crazy town. Right? Yeah. Like, can you imagine getting divorced for $400? I mean, like,
yeah.
And, that's probably for people that don't have a lot of complicated, assets and things like that. Things where things are straightforward and not contentious, I guess. Right. And then there's the pro plan. What's the difference there? Yeah.
The pro is by far our most popular plan. Pro plan allows you to use the technology to generate all of your forms, calculate support, disclose your finances, but it also includes a project manager. This is not a lawyer. This is a account coordinator who is going to keep the two of you moving and is going to offer you resources or content or tools if you get stuck. This person is going to file all your documents, proofread all your documents, and make sure that if there's an issue you can't resolve, he or she gets you to the right expert who can help get that done. So most popular plan is Pro. About 19% of our Pro plan customers end up spending an hour or two with a financial expert, a mediator, or a lawyer, but directly through our platform. So they do the first two steps primarily asynchronously, like working on their own. And then when they get to step 3, that's when they can see where they have an agreement, where they don't, and bring in an expert to just help them get to that finish line.
Honestly, Erin, I just don't know why everyone doesn't do it this way. It really is.
Well, we're trying to get the word out.
And so the plus plan, what's the difference there? Like, what else do you get with your account coordinator and all? And that's got the forms for both spouses. Yeah.
Yeah. So the pro is if you don't know if your spouse is going to join the platform or not. The project manager will still coordinate with your spouse, but it's where, you don't want to pay for your spouse as well if you don't know if they're going to join.
Okay.
And in some states, your spouse actually doesn't have to do the documents itself. So for in New York, for example, almost everyone chooses Pro because they don't need to go the plus option. Plus is when both spouses, you live in a state where both spouses need to do something, maybe not all the forms, but something. And both spouses want to do it together from the start, right? They're worried. They don't want their spouse to get an edge or feel like they're in any way, shape, or form sort of
beating them in the process or whatever.
Yeah. They're committed to working together start to finish, and they both want to be a customer, not just of the technology, but of the company itself. Okay. So that means so with Plus, right from the start, the project manager, who we call an account coordinator, is reaching out to both spouses and keeping both spouses up to date. Because we find that this lack of transparency that permeates through the divorce court industry, I'm using that because I heard you guys say a lot in the last episode, is really what often makes things so much worse, right? So here's an example. So we had early on, and we had a pro customer who filed their initial documents, and this was in California. And in that particular county, the court set what's called a status conference without anything being wrong or any big motion in front of the court, the judge is in some counties just want to check in with you in a couple months to see where you are. And so that spouse gets this notice from the court that says you're required to come to court next month, and says to their spouse, like, hey, I thought things were supposed to be amicable.
Right.
Like I thought you weren't taking me to court, and here I am having to go to court. So it's a risk of like over communicating. We are really clear about everything. We know counties like down to the, like we know in Santa Clara, for example, in California, it could take up to 6 months if you don't use one of our private judges to get your documents filed. But in LA, they're doing it overnight. It's crazy.
Oh, wow.
So we just like try to make sure and then deliver that communication in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming.
It's so great because, you guys, I'm always saying like, dude, I wish I knew all the laws in every state, in every county, because they're so different, but you do. Or your platform.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Right.
Yeah, we're getting there. Yeah. Heather, who is not a lawyer, she is my co-founder and our president, and now by default our head of product. She's really learned almost every state, and she will be so interesting to have on here at some point because she can tell you the differences and the ins and outs, and never once went to law school or practiced law.
That's incredible. That's amazing. And now a quick word from our sponsor. Wait, that's me. I know I have a lot of podcast episodes for you to get through, and it can be really, really overwhelming to try and figure out where to start or to comb through which ones might be appropriate for you, whether you're trying to decide whether to stay or go, or you're already on the other side of the divorce process. Like, how do you know what to listen to? I have solved the problem for you. All you have to do is go to kateanthony.com/playlist. Answer a few short questions, and I will send you a curated list of podcast episodes to best support you as you navigate these tricky waters. I'll also help you identify where you currently stand on this journey and what's ahead, with resources to help you move through this process with knowledge and grace. So all you need to do is go to kateanthony.com/playlist, answer a few short questions, and you will have your curated list of podcast episodes that will support you wherever you are in your journey. And now back to our show.
So you've got these 4 plans: the DIY, the Pro, the Plus, and the mediation. And literally they go from they're $400, $1,500, $2,500, and $3,800. This is like unheard of in terms of expense and cost for divorce. And like, why can't we all just do it this way? Right? Wouldn't it be amazing? But of course it would put, a lot of people out of business who make an awful lot of money off of our discord, right? It's amazing. And, the other thing is that on your website, you have more checklists and blog posts. I mean, you can get a PhD in divorce by just spending a few hours on the Hello Divorce website. It's so incredible.
We are obsessed with content. And I think it's because everybody, when they're getting a divorce, goes to Google, and there's so much noise out there. I guess now ChatGPT too, right? And there's so much noise out there around the nuances, like the worst thing that can happen or the best thing that can happen. And to get either one of those results, you need to talk to a lawyer or you're going to be screwed.
Yeah.
And in reality, and we know this now, right? Because we have volume. When I was a law firm owner, and even when I had 12 lawyers, we had, maybe each lawyer had 10, 20 cases a year. That's it. But at Hello Divorce, we now see thousands of people. And so we understand that most people don't fall into that nuance. Maybe one small part of their divorce, yes. But most people experience very similar issues. And so it's not worth it to scare everyone. It's not worth it to say, you will be screwed if you don't do this. So getting that content out there is really important. And then, if you had to choose one download, which you don't because they're all free, I would say if you're at the start of your divorce, our Divorce 101 download is great for everything from co-parenting to what documents you need.
It's like hundreds of pages.
Yeah.
I have it. And I think I printed it out once because I was like, I really want to go through this. And it's a lot of pages.
Yeah. And not everything will apply to everyone.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for a more condensed one, I would say the settlement checklist, like things not to forget in your settlement checklist. I can't tell you how often people forget they had airline miles or gym membership.
Right.
And even if you're giving it up, like deal with it now so that it doesn't come back to haunt you later. Yep. And then of course, like the post-divorce checklist is kind of important too. Nothing that you need to do right away, but kind of to like slowly sort of check it off and know that you're setting yourself up for a positive next chapter foundation.
What are some of the things in the post-divorce checklist?
Okay. Well, a lot of people think that if you put a term in your divorce agreement that gives you half of your spouse's 401k, that's enough. When in reality, you generally have to do an additional document called a qualified domestic relations order. Yes, a quadro. It's such a beautiful name.
Right? And it's so long and complicated
and expensive. It's just like none of this makes sense. It's crazy. So like making sure you get that taken care of, changing all the stuff but they're just like not in one place, not until now. Like, what about changing the beneficiaries on, even your bank account? A lot of us have pay on death bank accounts. Like, who do we want that to go to? Something were to happen to us. Credit cards, like making sure that, names are changed and taken off, things like your iCloud account when they're connected or the Find My Phone, you're connected, all that stuff. And so it's got instructions and help and, just all the different things that we need to do at some point, not necessarily right when we divorce, but that we want to like think through. Cause it is
it's your own Apple
this
ID.
Is a big life.
Right. Yeah. Big time. No, those are great. Those are really great. Those are great things. And now you have a new platform coming.
So
speaking of moving on,
we have Hello Divorce, which is what we've been talking about. Nice segue. We are also expanding into what we call Hello Next Chapter, which is a personalized dashboard to help you figure out all the things you need to do during and after divorce, and then actually do them. So we just talked about that post-divorce checklist. Imagine if it was in a dashboard where you could sort of check off as you go and get access to additional help if you need it. So like, as an example, you finish your divorce, whether or not you did it with us, but we learn through a questionnaire that you have a house that you need to refinance. So we are able to not only help you vet a good, solid mortgage broker, but if that option no longer serves you, like perhaps it turns out that the interest rate's so high, you can't afford the mortgage payments, then we also have incredible resources and concierge to sort of help you figure out what your other options might be. So let me give you a little example. So we had a customer who actually did her divorce with us, and in the divorce judgment, the agreement was that she would buy her spouse out, the equity in their house. Like that's a pretty common thing, right? We didn't get to her earlier because she really thought she'd be able to do that. And it turned out that with the interest rate so high that her payment would go up and she wouldn't be able to afford her post-divorce budget.
Yep.
And so what we helped her do was find a company that could purchase her spouse's interest. So pay her spouse out. And then that company becomes a lien holder that you don't pay until you ultimately sell your house if you sell it. So they make a profit, right? Like they'll get paid back plus a piece of the increase in value. So it's not for everyone. But for her, it made sense. She wanted to stay in the house. She didn't want additional payments. She wanted her spouse off of her back and off the mortgage and off the title, and didn't need to be pushed to sell anytime soon. So that's the kind of thing that we're helping with. We utilize CDLPs, certified divorce lending professionals, who are amazing. I saw you had Tammy on your show, and
love Tammy.
She's amazing. She's with us too. She works with us as well.
Excellent.
We're so lucky.
Yeah.
And we're just like it. So I believe that divorce should always empower a better life ahead. And as you know, like the stats are terrible. Men tend to do better financially after divorce and women do worse, like almost every time across the board. Right. So how can we change that? And we change it by being a lot more creative and pushing the envelope. And that's what we're working on.
So how do you do that with your platform? I love that. Like you just, you know me, yeah. I'm like, wait, what? We're going to help women have better financial outcomes in divorce. Sign me up. So how does that work?
Well, in part it works. So lots of different ways. Let me give you an example. So the average child support order on our platform is $100 per month higher than the national average. And I think a lot has to do with the fact that, which surprised me, a lot has to do with the fact that our platform is educating people on what it is that they're entitled to. And our platform is also helping people to understand what the expense, both financially and emotionally, would be if they had to fight for that extra $50 or fight against that extra $50 a month if they were to go to court. So just built into the way we walk through and talk about divorce, like you never see those awful, ugly legalese forms the entire time you're going through your divorce with Hello Divorce. You just see a beautiful interface. You see lovely colors, great content. So we're sort of taking that stress off people's shoulders to begin with, which helps a lot.
So,
and then,
I actually want to sort of drill down on that before you go on, because I think this is important that when you get divorced through Hello Divorce, you don't actually have to fill out complicated state forms that like make your eyes bleed. You have taken each form from each state and or county, and you have just basically put it into an online form that's easy to fill out, doesn't make your eyes bleed, and then that gets submitted to the state or county on the back end. So you're not actually having to download these fucking forms and then fill them out on your own. You're actually doing it on the platform. And I think that is one of the greatest things that you have done. Because as you said, it keeps you in a spirit of, like one step at a time. We're just answering these questions. And then I'm assuming that if you need to take a break and stop, it'll save your progress.
Right. Yeah. So you can save, you come back to it. We're always trying to improve and getting feedback, and we're doing an analysis on where's friction points, where do people get stuck and why, trying to fix that.
And you also... You also translate the like legalese, financialese that makes no sense on these forms into English.
Yeah, which is tricky because legal regulations, as you can imagine, make it very, very difficult. They don't want what's called unauthorized practice of law. So we can give legal information, but we can't give legal advice.
Right.
And so, yes, we are able to translate it into everyday language. We're able to make include little videos or little bullet points on what something means and why. We're able to tell you when there's an issue so complicated that most people seek legal advice, right? We can't tell you, go get a lawyer, but we can say, you know what? 95% of the time when someone experiences, this type of issue, they talk to a lawyer, at least on our platform. So that we've had to be like super creative, but then it helps you figure out, like, as you're going through it, you're like, okay, well, I did really care about this, whatever property it is, a television, couch. And I especially care about it now because he or she wants it so bad. Right. But I'm going to let that go because I only have X number of dollars and I want help on X, Y issue. Right. So it really so you're slowing down, you're making progress, you're not getting to the agreement part until you're ready. And now you're like, okay, here's where I'm going to bring in the expert. And like I said, sometimes it's the expert talking to your spouse for you because sometimes that's just, there's too many triggers and too many old toxic patterns to have the two of you talking about it directly. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Like that works for a lot of people.
That's right. But it's better to have your platform talking than two attorneys who are benefiting from racking up the dollars as it goes on, right?
I would say that. And I would say that even well-intentioned lawyers, because I like to think that I was a well-intentioned lawyer, even well-intentioned lawyers, you as a lawyer are taught that you show your value by winning.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That is what makes the best lawyers. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, because I'm the one who had the crisis of conscience after my second child was born, that winning destroys a family. Like there are very rare situations where you want to fight and that a win actually feels like a win. We want experts and professionals around us that want to understand your absolute needs and some of your wants and have that be the focus, right? That be the most important part, not revenge, not winning.
Yeah.
Not getting them back, any of that stuff. Like it's not worth it. And so if we can start to think about great lawyers being those that can negotiate really well, even with the narcissist, that they can play their game, that sometimes they appear to be friendly, but it's a means to an end. Like if we can start glorifying that more, then maybe we can start to change the industry. But until then, like stay away, if at all possible, from the full representation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how else, I just want to go back to this sort of like how you help women to not lose so much. So the support, that's really interesting. Are there other things that are sort of baked in that help women not lose their shirts?
Yeah. So I think a big piece, right, is like the transparency and the creative options that we bring. There was just an article in Wall Street Journal, shocker, because we talked about this earlier in the conversation, about how like there's no options if you have a house. Like you either have to sell or refi if you want to keep it, but like those are your only options. So what we do, like I said, is we like are creative with what solutions are out there. And then we go out and personally vet these companies. So like, here's an example. Like there was a company that specifically said, hey, we get the best deals to women that are refinancing their house. They get the best mortgages. And we applied and we got peppered with text messages and emails and retargeting ads. And we were like, ew, this is so gross. Oh, wow. This is clearly not a great option for our customers, right? So like we do a lot of vetting, creative thinking, and then leveling the playing field by offering a la carte or limited scope services on the issues that you identify you need the most help with. So, I mean, it's not perfect by any means, but we are like making some serious progress in terms of helping to move the needle there, to understand, things like, what is going to set you up with the most positive financial foundation for resiliency. Like we're not instead of like, okay, maybe we end up getting you, like as a practicing lawyer, I can get you an extra, $10,000. That's not what we're looking for anymore. Instead, we're looking, how can we set you up in the best position so that you can bounce back as quickly as reasonably possible, or shift course or pivot. Like that's what we're thinking about. Life planning, not just law in a vacuum.
I love that. Yeah. Oh my God. I just feel like we're so lucky to get you. I mean, really.
Oh my God.
Like, I feel like, especially for women, this is just especially like working with someone like Tammy, who's going to like tell it to you straight that like, this is not the best option for you. Like keeping your house may actually put you under. trying to refinance this house in this market. Like, it's not going to happen. You're not going to qualify, right? Like, let's get to that first.
Yeah.
Because we have so many women who, like, the lawyers are like, sure, okay, you can keep the house. And then they go to keep the house and like, oh, wait a minute, I can't.
Yeah. Here's an example. Like, we have an equity split calculator tool. Maybe I can just put it in your show notes. It's just a link where you can put like what you think the value of your house is, even if it's just like on Zillow, what you think you owe on it, some other like details, and then it will spit out some options that you might have. So you can understand like, oh, maybe I could do like the sale leaseback or the mortgage, but it's a starting point. Then if you want to talk to us, great. If not, you want to go to your local person, that's fine too, but it's free and it's helpful. So if you feel like that, God, I feel so stuck, they have no options. Maybe you do. Maybe there are more out there. Yeah.
My gosh.
I'm so grateful for you to like, let us chat about it. And, someday the legal regulations will allow us to actually represent people that need it. I'm a lawyer, but I can't represent customers through my platform because the powers that be, legislators, right, who generally are lawyers, won't let us do that.
Right. So of course not.
The laws are starting to change a little bit, but someday we hope that we can take it that step further. So we help people through the platform. And if things get really messy or violent, we'll have the ability to be able to represent people in court. We're not there yet, but that's what we're working towards.
Okay. Yeah. But in the meantime, I mean, the amount of growth and expansion and like depth that you've created, like since we first met, like I said, it's mind blowing. I love it. I just want everyone listening, I want you all to at least explore this as an option, right? It's just completely outside the box. It's different from anything that you may have considered or thought possible for you in your situation. But if you've been listening and you're like, wait a minute, maybe we could do that, please do it. HelloDivorce.com. Super easy, right? You can pick your state.
Yeah. Do a free 15-minute call. Even if we're not in your state just yet, do the free call and we'll talk to you about what your options are. That's your worst scenario, is that we talk through how you might want to approach divorce.
And you know what? We're going to be in your state in like 4 weeks, 6 weeks. Give us some,
exactly.
Which is perfectly,
we're almost there.
Perfectly fine. Oh my gosh, Erin, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this. I'm like really jazzed and excited about the capabilities and the future of what this might look like.
Thank you.
I mean, really.
I feel it. I feel that energy and I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so great. Okay, so HelloDivorce.com, where else? And then the Hello Next Chapter is due to come out when?
Yeah, so it's already been beta tested. It will default to that very soon in your state. So you don't need to worry about looking for it. It will just be there. Follow us on Instagram at Hello Divorce. Feel free to schedule a free 15-minute call.
Awesome. And we'll put that calculator that you said in the show notes. And yeah, amazing. Amazing. Erin, thank you so much. You've just done like the world such an incredible service. And
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming on again.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Divorce Survival Guide podcast. If you like what you hear, head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen in and leave me a review. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at The Divorce Survival Guide. I'll see you next time, and until then, remember, you, my love, deserve to be happy.